When it comes to getting faster, being quicker off the line, improving your agility and how fast you actually are, there are really two major areas that we need to look at first in your training and your overall body to enhance those results and make sure you can get those results quickly. Now, one is going to be a little bit easier to grasp and get a hold of rather than the other one, but most athletes tend to need both of them in order to actually get faster and get the best results possible. What's up? I'm Nick Lyden. I'm a certified strength and conditioning coach. I've worked with hundreds of athletes to help them get them bigger, stronger, faster in football, baseball, soccer, literally every sport that there is. So I'm here to share with you what we've learned and help you implement it so you can get faster for your next season. The two major areas that we have our physical attributes and our physical ability, and then we have our technical side. So when we're talking about our physical side or our physiology, we're simply, the simplest way I can say this is everything that we're doing is trying to be able to produce more force and more power, okay? So in this, we're just gonna stick with force. So force is simply mass times acceleration, but we're gonna break that down a little bit further in some future videos with some very specific ones for you. Now, when we talk about technical, this is referring to everything involved in our running mechanics. Everything from your leg drive to hip projection to shin angles to arm mechanics, everything involving that aspect. And both of these work together in order to make you the fastest, most efficient athlete out there. So how do we actually improve these different qualities, okay? So the major areas that you're gonna wanna focus on in order to make improvements in your physical side are your force production, okay? So force production is just simply how much force you can produce, and there's two different areas within that. And we gotta understand which one of these we need to work on first. So we have force production in terms of strength and absolute strength, and then we have force production in terms of power. So power is force times velocity. So typically when we are starting out, most younger athletes and athletes who are weaker, they need to work on the strength component first before moving into the power component. If you're someone like me who has a couple of years of lifting, you're pretty strong, but you still haven't gotten faster, maybe the limiting factor for you is your power output and power production. And there's some things that we will teach in the future videos that will help you with that. So force production, okay? Things that go into that are like strength training, resisted running, things of that nature. And this is largely revolving around your legs for in terms of speed that we're talking about. So all of that is great, but we need to be able to make sure we can produce that force quickly. So one of the things we want to look at is our rate of force development. That's what RFD stands for, so your rate of force. Because it doesn't matter if, say, we can squat 600, 700, 800 pounds, which is crazy, if we can't do it at a very fast rate. And when I'm talking fast in terms of speed, it's milliseconds, okay? It's not 1 to 2 seconds, okay? So our rate of force development has to be very, very high, and things like strength training, plyometrics can help with that. Now, the next aspect, which is largely overlooked in terms, I know it was for me when I was starting with running, I didn't even think about this, it's your mobility, okay? When we think about mobility, okay, just for everyone to understand, mobility isn't passive range of motion. So, for example, if I do this with my leg, this is active mobility. So there's a range of motion under tension. The tension is coming from the gravity that's pulling my leg down. Versus if I was to stand here and pull my knee up, okay, this is flexibility, right? There's no tension. Mobility, flexibility. We want mobility, so it's that active range of motion. So you may be thinking like, well, like stretching, doing all that stuff, how does this actually play in, right? So mobility in terms of sprinting and speed is what allows our body to get into the proper positions, which will influence our technique a little bit, so it plays into it, okay? So for example, if we're running, but we have a low, we can't get our thigh up very high, we can't get it almost up to 90, it's gonna limit and it's going to mess up our running mechanics because our leg's gonna be low, so we're gonna have less time to cycle through and get our foot down in the best possible aspect. Another way to think about this too is imagine that you have, say like, a little sheet of wood hopped up on a couple of bricks, right? And you're trying to break that piece of wood with your leg. But if you lack the mobility, you can only get your foot up this high above that piece of wood, you're not gonna be able to produce much power, versus if you can bring it all the way up and slam it down, okay? That's a simple way to think about how mobility can impact your overall power and your overall speed. The greater mobility, the longer we have to actually apply that force down into the ground, which is gonna help make you faster overall. And then the last thing is the elastic strength and like your tendon stiffness. So elastic strength, what this means is your tendons have the ability to store and transfer and use energy without necessarily the muscular force coming through it. So if we can get a good amount, or if we have good elastic strength, that extra force that we produce from our leg, plus the tendon stiffness and the elastic strength, it's gonna help transfer that into the ground. So a simple way to think about this is if this is my ankle and this is the floor, if I go to take a step and my smash, it comes all the way down, that's extra time that it's absorbing and then having to redirect, versus if it's very stiff, it's gonna apply that same amount of force quicker and get a bigger response, helping move you forward with it, okay? It's a simple way to think about your elastic strength. And again, we're gonna talk about what you can do to help increase this in our future videos. Now, when it comes to our running mechanics, the biggest ones that we have seen are your shin and torso angles, okay? So when we're talking about shin angles from an acceleration and or top speed position, it's about how we apply the force into the ground. It's just levers, okay? So everything is vertical force. It just depends on the angles that we put it in. So if our goal is to go this way, but our shin angles are almost vertical, we're applying force straight down this way, which is gonna pop us up. And if we're trying to accelerate forward, we're gonna be losing out on how much force and power and speed we can get going in this direction, versus if someone who has a shin angle this way, they're applying force back this way, which will project and push themselves forward. And then your shin and torso angles should match, as that is gonna help you produce the most amount of force possible. Now, another big thing is foot placement, and a lot of athletes actually mess this up a lot, where they are hitting out in front of their hip. We want to do something called a negative step, where we're actually attacking behind our hip to, again, help produce us forward. If you are hitting in front of your hip, we are slowing ourselves down, okay? We are actually braking a little bit. And then another big one is your front side and back side mechanics. So depending upon whether you are in acceleration or top speed, these will differ slightly. So if you're in acceleration, you want to be a little bit more front side dominant, and if you are going to be running at top speed, you're going to have more backside mechanics happening, but we're trying to minimize that a little bit as we go forward. And then the last thing that you should really be focusing on is your arm swing. So how to properly swing your arms to coordinate with your body, provide some dynamic trunk control so you're not losing force left and right a bunch, to help keep you on a straight path and moving back and forth, okay? All of these over here are gonna help you optimize your power, okay? So the goal of all of this is to optimize what you are able to produce over here in your physical side. So the technical side is what aids your ability to apply the force in a better, more efficient rate, increasing your speed overall. And in the next video, we're gonna go over the 3 different buckets that you need to fill when it comes to your speed, agility, and acceleration training in order to make this all happen seamlessly together. And I'll see you in the next video.